You're about to listen to an episode of the Leadership Melting Pot podcast, brought to you by Lumerous. Engage with us as we dissect an aspect of leadership and see how you may apply some of what is shared across your business.
Hello and welcome to the Leadership Melting Pot. My name is Deborah Thomas. I'm part of the Leadership Academy of Lumerous.
Thanks, Debs. Hi, everyone. I'm Romeo Effs. I'm the founder and CEO of Lumerous. Deb and I have had the opportunity of working together for years, even outside of Lumerous, and it's such a pleasure to be hosting these podcasts with Debs week on week. To be honest with you, hopefully very soon we'll be in one studio, doing this pretty soon.
And can I introduce our guests from today? So Shivani, Madame Bose, and Shelly-Ann. Can I ask you both to say a little bit about yourselves? Perhaps Shivani, will start with yourself.
My name is Shivani Madan Bose. I'm a certified POSH trainer. So POSH trainer is an act in a country which speaks about anti-sexual harassment, which happens to women and how to protect them. I have been working in the field of women empowerment for almost 17 years now. I have written a book about it, and we are trying to do our bit in this field, trying to elevate women, especially at the workplace.
And Shelly-Ann, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Certainly. Good morning, everyone, and thanks so much for having me. I'm Shelly-Ann. I am here in Jamaica. I'm the founder and executive director for Her Flow Foundation. I started this foundation in 2016 to empower Jamaican women and girls about their reproductive health and rights through education and mentorship. Our flagship project is to end the period poverty in Jamaica. Most of our work focuses along schools, institutions of education, and public institutions, clinics, just to ensure that menstrual products are available free in all of these spaces so that Jamaicans can have dignified periods. It is a real issue whenever we, interview students or even women who are unable to just function on a daily basis. We find them doing a lot of creative things to manage their periods. Some of these things put them at risk health-wise. And we find that even access to education becomes an issue when menstrual products are not available for free in the schools. So girls drop out of schools, they don't show up, or even if they do things like use one product for multiple days, or they create their own products, or they really try to get very creative. And we are very, very invested in ensuring that comprehensive and sexual and reproductive health education is available in schools as well, because we find that even with the young men and the men overall are not a part of reproductive health conversations. So let me just say that I'm happy to see a man on the panel this morning, because this is a conversation that definitely needs to include all of us, because it affects all of us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shelly-Ann. I'm going to discuss the matter of menstrual leave for women in the workplace. And obviously we'll be talking about paternal leave as a separate issue at a later date. So if we can perhaps start with, for the purpose of context, what is menstruation and how does it impact women in their everyday lives as well as in the workplace? If I can
Deb, just before you jump into that,
yeah.
Just picking up on Shelly-Ann's point about the fact that a male, is on the panel, etc. I think it's very important, because I didn't realize the impact that this had on women until my daughter started having her menstruation. And I saw the pain that she went through like every single month. And I was like, what? This really happens? Like, it was foreign to me. And then I remembered calling my mom, and I'm like, I have far more respect for women now after that, because if every month you have to go through that, then there is childbirth, then there is the menopause, like, really? I mean, why aren't women just given far more respect on this planet than they do? Because I can tell you that if men went through that, we would create a pill a long time to get rid of that, right? So the conversation, so men need to be involved in this conversation. We need to understand, this whole process. I was so honored when my daughter saw her period for the first time. She called me. She didn't call her mom or my mom. She called me. So, so I just wanted to kind of set the context where that was concerned, and said, boy, I'm so honored to be here, having this conversation with you guys.
I think that's fantastic, and it's so good to have you here anyway. And I think you're absolutely right that it does need to be a conversation, that men are involved with as well, especially as we go on to this topic of menstrual leave and the validity of that in the workplace. So if I just refer back to our original context and what is menstruation, how does it impact women in their everyday lives as well as at work? Does anyone have a comment to make? So probably referring to Shivani or Shelly here. Is there anything that you'd highlight in that context?
So I think menstruation is a part of every woman's life. It's a part of growing up, and it starts right at the college level. And like Shelly so clearly pointed out, that a lot of girls would take up leaves because they find it difficult during this time. So this is something that is new to them. They're not used to it. So the idea that a girl studying in school would need menstrual leave is much higher than it would be in the corporates, where women are still used to the fact that this becomes a part of their life. And I think the experience for every woman is different. For some, it would be a mild pain, to some menstruation cramps. Some would have mood swings. So some would have extreme pain if they have PCOD, other medical issues. At times, the pain does become unbearable. And that is how probably we have a need for a menstrual leave.
Shelley, is there anything you'd add to that?
Oh, without a doubt. I think it's important to highlight that some women experience physical pain, but I think that when we're having this conversation, we also need to embrace the emotional and hormonal aspect of menstruation. And I think that's the part of it that we don't talk about enough. Culturally or stereotypically, we hear people talk about when women are on their period that they're miserable or they're moody and all of these kind of things, but we don't try to figure out why that is, or if it's even valid. And the truth is, a lot of the times when you're on your period or even around your period, because of the fluctuation in our hormones, emotionally, we become unstable. So there's a whole chemical reaction going on in the body. And wouldn't it be nice if on those days when you're just feeling off, you can get to stay home and recover rather than trying to still function in a workplace where people are coming at you. So now you're getting overwhelmed on top of that. So you're already feeling off. Now you have all of these things happening. And so what you end up feeling as the person receiving how that person is reacting is a response to a lot of things adding up to her. And if she had the option to just, being able to stay home and recuperate and get her mental situation balanced and then get back to work and be more productive, it's definitely going to be a win for the company overall. So I think that whenever we're having a conversation around menstruation, I know there are women who go through a lot of physical pain, but we really do need to include the emotional and mental aspect of this experience as well.
From one quick question though, I mean, that I think would be helpful, at least for me as a man, is from a biological standpoint, what is menstruation? Like, what happens in the body?
Beautiful. Yeah. I can help you with that.
And also the notion that there is always a reference between, to be honest with you, and I might sound very ignorant here, I didn't know the difference between menstruation and period.
All right, let me just be real quick. I teach period sessions in schools all the time, and I carry my trusty womb with me everywhere I go.
Okay.
Now, the menstruation cycle, it's a cycle and it's a chemical process. It starts off with hormones. So every month, your brain sends a message to your pituitary glands that produces the hormones, and the hormones sends messages to your body parts and they have reactions. So what happens is monthly, estrogen is released in the bloodstream and it causes your ovary to release an egg. Your body, okay, so biologically, we are always preparing for childbirth and pregnancy. That's what our body does. We don't have any control over it. That's what happens. That's the cycle. So our body is preparing for this new baby to be born. So the egg is released. It makes its way to the fallopian tube, which is this area here. During this journey, if the lady has sexual encounter with her partner and sperms get involved in her body and comes up into the womb, past the cervix, into the womb, and it will meet the egg somewhere along the journey through the fallopian tube, and the egg becomes fertilized, and then the fertilized egg comes and make a spot in the womb. However, if no fertilization happens, The egg continues the same journey along the line and comes into the womb. Now the womb is also making preparation. It creates a lining, and the lining is where the fertilized egg would have embedded itself if there was one. So since there's no fertilized egg, this lining here, it breaks down, so does the egg, and it sheds, and everything comes out through the cervix, through the vagina, and that is your period.
Okay.
Now, the period is not just blood. It is the breakdown of the womb, the cells, the membranes, the remnants of the egg. There's going to be some vaginal tissue in there as well. So if you were to look at the actual period itself, you'll see it has some little pieces of membrane and tissue and stuff in it. So it's not just the blood, right? So there's a menstrual cycle, and the release of these things is menstruation. And then what happens is sometimes when most of it is released, you'll find that a woman will say, okay, when my period is over, and 3 days later, she releases some last remnants of her period. It's because sometimes there's still some little pieces left in the womb and it is released, or even in the vagina itself, sometimes there's some little remnants left and it's released, and it might look a different color, but it's the same period that comes out of the body. That's just the quick version of it. A lot more things go on, but quickly, that's what I have.
Okay.
Did I miss anything, ladies?
No,
no, I think that was great. That was really great.
I'm pretty sure the men listening to this will appreciate that. So, yeah.
Fantastic. And I guess just talking about, in the workplace, and I've certainly experienced where you're feeling poorly, and you just go in and you take your painkillers and you just get on with it, or you'll get some comment like, oh, she's on a period and she's going to be moody, and it's quite dismissive, isn't it?
Yes.
Why do you think that menstruation is almost a taboo topic in the workplace? Why do you think that is?
So I think it would start somewhere with the society, with the conditioning itself. Like Romeo clearly pointed out, he wasn't aware of the process of how much pain it would cause. When there is ignorance, there is bound to be a lot of myths being spread about. So that is the reason, people would talk about a menstruation cycle in a very derogatory way. There are so many memes about it. So saying, if a woman is just being moody, so I think she's on her periods, leave her alone. And if it is something that is given to them as an education right from the beginning, they would have a much clearer understanding, and perhaps they would have a more sympathetic concern towards it. So right now, there is a lot of movement gathering momentum about woman equality. I believe it's not about woman equality, it's about woman equity. Because men and women are essentially different. We have a lot of physical differences. What we are looking at is there has to be a support system where women can function properly at the workplace. And we are talking about menstrual leaves, but there would be some preemptives before that. Things like, do we have enough washrooms for women? That is the first question. Or does it that a woman has to walk for a long distance before even reaching the washroom? Then the second is, if she goes to the washroom, is it clean enough? Or if it's dirty, it can cause a lot of medical issues. Then another question, are the tampons or the sanitary napkins available in case she gets a period on a date she does not remember and she's not carrying one? So if we even have these bases in place, it would help a lot. Because imagine you're in your office, you get your periods and you don't have a sanitary napkin with you. What do you do? So probably you would go around asking other female colleagues. And it becomes a difficult scenario. So some basics in place to provide the right infrastructure for women would definitely help.
I fully co-sign on that, but I also think that in Jamaica, let me speak to our particular culture. When my period first started, the first thing that I was told, I grew up with my grandmother, the first thing she said to me was, nobody should experience your period. I never forget that statement. And it was even driven home to me that there's no man in this house, not even your father, should ever know that you're having your period. And there is a specific lesson taught to girls of how to hide their periods. It is not considered something that you're allowed to talk about. If you're having any other kind of pain, if you have a migraine, you can say, I have a migraine. If your asthma is acting up today, you can say that. If you're having any sort of discomfort where your period is concerned, keep it to yourself. that is cultural. That is what we are taught. You are supposed to be able to live in a house with men in it and go and have a full cycle, and none of the men should ever know. They should never go in the bathroom and see your products. They should never see anything around the house that suggests that you have a period. And because of this culture of silence and secrecy, what happens is that talking about it becomes a no-no. It becomes taboo. It becomes breaking the rules. So I think that from even as part of a lot of the drives that we do through my foundation, a lot of the conversations that we have, the fact that we're conversing with men now about periods, that whole thing is considered absolutely taboo, because that is something that is not supposed to happen. But I love the fact that this what Romeo said, that he has a daughter, because that is my target market. I target men who have daughters, because now they are forced to participate in the conversations about periods, because now their children are asking them about it, because they'll be in relationship with women for years. They'll have several different relationships with women and never have to have a conversation about period, see period, have to buy menstrual products, and they will have no clue how period operates, because culturally, that is what we are taught. And that is what we're still teaching girls. And it is one of our objectives to change that, because hiding it does not help. It just forces us to suffer in silence, because we don't get the support that we need. And we end up feeling all of this pain, all of this discomfort, and it doesn't make any sense.
Shelly, you're so right. I mean, Debs, what has been your, because for me, I think one of the reasons, especially in the workplace, why it's so taboo is because us men, so as a man, I've always been taught that period is dirty, it's nasty, you shouldn't even touch your partner if they're going through it.
Yes.
You know, it's like, oh, you're on your period, oh, you know, kind of a situation. But I mean, Debs, growing up like in the UK, have you had that similar kind of experience, you know, growing up as a female in a society like the UK around?
Yes, I think to some extent, I think that not so much in that you can't talk about it in front of, you know, of family members. You know, I have a brother and, you know, my dad, and that was absolutely fine. But certainly in the workplace, I very much felt that you don't discuss it and you just get on with it. And there was that kind of, you know, if you're even slightly stroppy, you know, you're kind of, you know, batted off into, well, it's just PMT, isn't it? You know, just period, you know, just ignore them. And I kind of felt that, and I very much felt the pressure just to, you know, take the tablets and get on with it. Basically, I think that's very much in the workplace how I have felt. I think all through my working life. I think that's fair to say. Even I think to some extent when working for women, because we're all trying to be these kind of super duper, you know, professional people, and we want, in some ways we try to be like the men, so we try and hide this, you know, this kind of side of us and try not to let it come through. It's quite hard to do, because I see there's a very emotional piece to periods as well. But I definitely think that yes, women generally we're hiding it, we're keeping it under wraps, not to the extent that you have in Jamaica, Shelly-Ann, but definitely, you know, we don't talk about it enough. And I mean, we'll come on now to, you know, should there be menstrual leave? I think we're all leaning, you know, in that direction. And it's interesting that, I mean, menopause has come out a little bit more now, and menstrual, you know, is now starting to get some traction, isn't it? You know, and I think that's all for the good. But I think that, back to Raymond's point, you need the male engagement as well. You need men to understand the journey that women go on, what they know, what they sort of struggle with, and to facilitate that where they can, and just to be thoughtful, you know, about it.
How can we go about doing that though? Is it more of an awareness education piece, or, you know, especially in the workplace, especially because, you know, regardless of what we say, you know, majority of the senior leadership in the corporate world are still men, and they drive most of the decisions, etc. And we find this, you know, Debs, you know this in the work that we do around inclusion and belonging, that, you know, we have to deal with a lot of men in terms of getting them on board. So, you know, how can we make, because for me, I just feel it's so unfair. It's so unfair for women to be having to go through all of this in the workplace. Whereas I know that as a male, if my head hurt me and I'm at work, I'm gone. Like, see you guys. You know what I mean? Like, so how can we help people like men in the workplace to be more on board where this is concerned? I don't know.
So I'll take this up. I'm working as a diversity and inclusion consultant with a lot of companies where we have implemented menstrual leaves. So the idea, like you said, is to start with awareness. You talk about it in open circles. You first discuss it with management that this is what we want to do. We want to introduce menstrual leaves and just break the taboo. Like we said, I am from India, so we still have a taboo talking about menstrual cycle, especially at workplace. But just let the conversation begin. And what my experience has been, men are generally supportive for doing such
Yes.
activities. We'll be like, we want to do it, but I want to know how I can help. Is it something
Yes.
that should I talk this to a woman or should I not? Will it make her more comfortable or uncomfortable? So there are a lot of questions, and men would also have. You need to answer those questions, give them the right path, and once they are comfortable with it, then introduce it in the organization. And generally, the management level, they have a higher vision, they would be able to understand things. It's the middle level managers which need more of education, more of awareness, because at that level, they say, okay, giving 2 days leave, it's going to cost me my productivity. So, answering their queries that if a woman is in pain and she's forced to come to office, chances are she would be physically present but would not be able to contribute much. So, this is an option that should be given to a woman. It should not be something she necessarily has to take. So, if she doesn't want to take it, again, that's a right she has. Like I was just going through this research, we've done a lot of campaigns on menstrual cycle. That in Japan, they have this system of menstrual leaves for almost 70 years now. Fight going
Did
on.
you say 70 years?
Yeah.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
And surprisingly, what I went through the study was none of the companies in US have a policy for it. So the government has not introduced anything there.
Yeah.
Neither has it happened in the Europe front much. But yeah, Japan has been doing it. Taiwan has been doing it. South Korea has been doing it. So there have been some countries which are very progressive.
Yeah.
Like in India, there's just one state, Bihar, where government has implemented mandatory 2 days menstrual leaves. So every company, every country is doing their bit in their own way.
I think Spain is just looking, isn't it? To
Spain. Yeah. Spain.
yeah.
Mhm.
So that that's fantastic, and hopefully that will spread out through Europe. But do we feel that we should have menstrual leave in the UK, and how do we facilitate that?
If I can jump into that, I mean, like I think most definitely, and I think that it should be separate from your regular sick days, right? You know,
Absolutely.
this should be something that is. I don't even know if we should put a number on it, but maybe we should, because sometimes it could be abused. But I think like
Correct.
women should know that every month they are entitled to 2-3 days every month. Like for Lumers, I'm going to start thinking about that right now. Although we work in a very agile, remote way, and our team members can are pretty flexible. But I think it's really, really key, and it's something that when we work with companies now around the whole notion of inclusion and belonging, that we are going to ensure that when we look at policies, is that do you have this policy in place, and how can you help women better where this is concerned? So that's my take.
I think the only thing I'd add to that is that if we look at Spain, for example, they're looking at introducing between a 3 and 5 day window, but it's with a doctor's note. So I think it's important that not all women suffer badly with their menstrual cycle. Some women take it in their stride. It just one of those things. So I think this is very much around those that are struggling, that do have issues, or feel that they'd be benefiting from either having the time off or being able to work remotely, perhaps on those days. So I think there's a bit of a balance, perhaps, in rather than everyone has it. I think from a work perspective that might be it might challenge I think the corporates too much. I'd be interested in other people's opinions on that.
So I might be a little bit naive here. So I keep hearing that my assumption, are there levels to like the levels of like suffering that women go through?
Oh,
so some people,
yes, completely.
Some people really do it like it's nothing.
Romeo.
Oh, really? Okay.
They are. It's you. Okay, so let me. I do this thing when I talk on TV here about periods. And I'm just trying to get men to understand the levels of pain that we actually go through. So let me see if I can, if this will give you an idea. Just imagine you tying a string to your left testicle, and then you having to go through the day and smile and be pleasant and be productive, and that string is there. And every once in a while, somebody tugs on the string, and you have to keep that smile on, and you still have to function. And for the most time, it's not so painful. It's just there. The string is there. And any minute now, somebody can yank the string, and we would be in conversations. I don't have really bad periods anymore, but I'm going to give you an example. I used to make a sound when the pain hits. So I'll be talking to you like this, and then you hear me go, When you see me do that, somebody's tugging on the string. And that happens throughout the day. You'll be going about your business, and you just see a woman stop in mid-stride, and she stops where she is, and she pauses. Somebody tugged on the string, and she holds it for a moment, and she keeps on walking. So the levels of pain, trust me, it goes from, and that's there. It's mild. You can function. You may pop two painkillers, and you keep it moving to the point where you cannot move. You have to stop. Sort of level of pain. So yes, there are levels.
Like add on to something here, it also depends on a lot of factors on your physical fitness. So like if you're someone who's continuously into walking, into yoga, it wouldn't impact you as much as someone who does not, who's anemic. Probably those are the people that would impact them more. So like if I just share my example, I'm a trainer, I'm a corporate trainer where I talk about issues related to women empowerment. And when we have these trainings, the dates are decided way in advance. And if on that day, it might be your first day of menstruation and you still have to go stand up all day and do the sessions. I don't think once it has happened that I've not been able to do it because I had menstruation. Was it uncomfortable? Probably yes. But in such circumstances, do I have an option of delaying the session where the dates have been decided months in ahead? The company has to make all possible kind of arrangements. Probably. We also do a lot of outbounds where, some young team members would come up and say, Shivani, I can't handle it. And that's also okay. So like every woman would be different and they would face it differently. But at times the scenario is such that you just cannot happen. You just can't avoid it. Let's talk about women in the unorganized sector. And in India, at least 94% of the women are working there. You talk about household maids, talk about women working in the construction sector. They don't even get proper sick leaves. So if you talk about giving them menstruation leaves, it's a luxury. So that's there, and then somehow they're able to manage it well, probably because they are physically fit, way fit than probably a lot of people sitting at home and doing the office desk jobs would be. So that's also a point of view I wanted to present. It's not that every woman would go through the cycle, and when some companies have tried to introduce it, a lot of women have come up and said, we don't want it. We don't want another thing that shows me as a weak person. This would result in me getting lesser increment, lower promotions, and probably my entire career cycle. They would say, this is a woman who takes 2 additional leaves, right? So you already have your maternity leave in place. Now you're talking about menstrual leaves. And let's understand that sexism does exist at workplace. Even if we want, we cannot completely get away with it. Is a fact I wanted to present.
No, I think in terms of, one of the questions I had was the arguments against menstrual leave, and that would be one of them. Women themselves, and I don't want to feel that I'm in the fire.
We don't have that problem in Jamaica, honestly. I think the women who have engaged in this conversation, or even just overall with the work that we do when we talk to women in the workplace, a lot of the times the question around menstrual leave is not so much about not being able to be at work. They would like the option to work from home. So if they still want to be at work, they just would like to say, all right, so for these 2 days, can I work from home? Because they have the comfort of their own facilities, and they can still be fully productive, but they won't have to deal with the people coming at them as much. So it's not going to lose a day It's just going to be different for those 2 days. And I don't think that's unreasonable, because if they're at the office and they're spending half the day in the sick area, you've lost the productivity anyway. So if they can function better from the comfort of their home and be more productive, and they still get the comfort of their own facilities, and they can get to still produce work, I think it works out as a win-win for the company, because they wouldn't have lost half that day lying in the nurse's office because they're just unable to function while they're at work. So based on the comments that we have heard so far in this conversation, it's not just about, okay, I just don't want to go to work on that day. I would just like the option to work from home instead of being at the office in the middle of everything that we don't. You spoke about the facilities at work. That's a major thing. If the bathrooms aren't clean, or if there aren't enough of them, or sometimes you get a notice that, oh, there's no water today, and there's no water. How are you going to function when you have your menstrual cycle to deal with and there's no water? And if you're at home, you wouldn't have any of these issues. So I haven't seen that sort of fear about being weak or anything like that, because the truth is, a lot of people work and don't take enough vacation. So they're not taking their vacations. So the 2 days for the week, for their period, they would welcome it.
I just wanted to add a fact here. Everybody cannot work from home. Let's talk about the manufacturing organization. A woman is working on the shop floor. If she goes and sits at home, how does she work from home? Like someone like me who is a trainer has to go on the site and deliver a training. I say I want to work from home, then who goes and gives the training? So these are also certain practical aspects. I have a board meeting, all members are present there, and then today I say I want to work from home because I've got my periods. Unfortunately, these things also affect your performance. And somewhere it is being questioned that there is a man here, probably you said, who takes less leaves, works longer hours. And again, there is a woman who's been given 2 days extra leave. These things would somehow matter when promotions are being given, when projects of high importance are being given, when there's a promotion but involves a lot of traveling with minimal leaves involved. Unfortunately, these things do get considered.
I do think in terms of remote working now and hybrid situations, it's easy to facilitate. So we are currently all online communicating. So you are absolutely right, Shivani. There are certain situations like those, for instance, to work in the NHS, for example, that cannot work from home easily, and I appreciate that. But I think now that in this new world we're living in, that to have remote access and still be very productive is completely viable. And I guess I'd like to look at what else could we do to support women in the workplace around their menstrual cycles. What else could be done at kind of local and global levels, if you like?
So like I said, it needs to start from the very, very basics. If I talk about India, it starts with the question of, are women given equal opportunities at work? It's the first question we ask. Then, is it that they get the same respect that a man would get in the organization? Another question, if they commit a mistake, is it considered with the same kind of factor that, men mistakes are forgiven much more easily than women mistakes are? There have been cases where a woman was a bad performer, and there have been departments which did not hire women for years. They took that decision, not put on paper, but it is something that always gets discussed. This woman was not working. So there are a lot of things that need to go much before we talk about menstrual leave. So I would say still it is something that would be considered a luxury in a country, because there are a lot of pros and cons. Like I discussed, there are days that you just have to be there. And in organizations, so like I said, the remote working would work for only places which are services essentially in nature. So if you're a digital marketing company, if you're into software, you can do it. If it is manufacturing, hardcore manufacturing, you're a plant HR, you have to be there in the organization to make your presence felt, to resolve those issues. And if you're not present there, I think women have this morbid fear that probably, we wouldn't be considered as a good performer as much as a person who's physically present. So I think that these fears, these taboos have to be handled much before we think if we introduce these leaves, because even if we introduce it, a lot of women might not be able to opt for it, considering the kind of the male chauvinism that we face every day in our organization. That's my take on it.
I mean, what comes to mind is if that's the case, then is there like a roadmap or a trajectory that you could take the business on it, especially the fact that a lot of this decision will have to be signed off by men, right? So what's
Yes.
that kind of easing into to then move up to that process that could happen?
Okay, so like there have been companies in India also which have introduced menstrual leave. So it started with Zomato, which is a delivery company, and they started introducing menstrual leave because they had a lot of females who were doing the delivery work. And once you're in the delivery and you're on the road, it becomes very difficult. But how did they introduce it? They took all the management on an outbound, shared the concept that this is something we want to start, shared their opinions. They ensured that the management was totally in support of it, and after that they started a series of education for, like I said, the supervisors there, the team leads there, to make them understand that how it is going to help them, how is it going to
Right.
the organization overall, rather than leading into reduction of turnover. Has
Hmm.
it helped completely? Probably no, but still people did come around. After this, they had a complete session with women where they said, you have any questions, any queries, do you think we should do it? And once all that was done, that is how they introduced the policy. So a lot of progressive women like you and me probably would be able to take up these leaves, say that I am menstruating, I want to leave. A lot of women with the conditioning that we should not talk about it, still don't talk about it, would either take a sick leave or would be present in the office. Then the choice remains with them.
I think you're right. I think there's before we get to for menstrual leave and anything sort of government led, then there is an education piece, isn't there, to be
Yeah.
done?
Yes.
And I think even if it's as much as that men generally have more of an understanding of what women go through and how they might facilitate women during their cycle. Even that, for example, as
Yeah,
a Shelley
yeah.
quoted, allowing to work from home, or just being understanding, that I think
Correct.
that would also make a big difference to women's experience.
I also think that, one, because, I've worked in a lot of corporate offices, whether, it's going there for clients or whatever. And one of the things that, there's this whole notion now of, genderless toilets. And so
Yes.
like I would go into these genderless toilets and I'm not seeing, the products in there, and I also think that that could also be very helpful in terms of ensuring that, and I'm not sure if, because I don't use the female toilets, so I don't know if they do have them in there, but I think just generally having these available, across the office, would be great.
That's the point I was going to make, because part of the issue why some women want to stay home or they don't come to work while they have their periods is just because they are not able to afford the products this month. And whether we like it or not, it's a monthly expense. And sometimes, a lot of persons' finances are at a point where just one inconvenient thing comes up and it throws everything off. And, in the scheme of things, persons find themselves having to choose between buying food and buying menstrual products. And sometimes just having the products there in the office available makes all the difference. Right now, a part of a campaign that we have started through my foundation is to get companies to do that. Because I said to them, when you're talking to people who are making decisions, especially men, you have to show them how they will save money or how they will make money. And the
Yeah.
truth is, I say to them, monitor for your next 3 months how the tissue usage is. And you would realize that there's a certain point of the month where there's a lot more tissue usage than others. And a big reason for that is because some of your employees are using tissues as makeshift menstrual products. So it will be cheaper for you if you provide the menstrual products and have them free for them available. So instead of using one roll in a day, whether other than the roll lasting a few days, you'll find that less tissue usage will be there. So you're buying less tissue and you get to fill a need that your team members have, and your overall productivity will see the benefits from it because persons won't be absent from work. So
Yeah, it's not even just the tissue use, Shelly-Ann. But for example, here in the UK, they offer things like free coffee and fruits and all that. Just pinch off a little. Now that I'm thinking, pinch off a little of the budget from these things and make sure that happens, right? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that is the conversation. So when you're talking about how companies can do this, We have to look at it from a business standpoint. How is the company going to benefit? How are the numbers going to be affected? Is it going to improve? Because if it is, then we don't have any pushback. We find that a lot of companies would be interested in doing this if it saves them money, and also if it improves the overall productivity. So that is the level on which I think we should have the conversation. It shouldn't be just looked at, oh, well, it's just another day for people to take leave, because I think Shivani is right. Every woman is not going to take advantage of it because they have to work in order to get paid. Some people make commission, so they need to be at work in order to get paid. But if the circumstances at work improves, then they won't have such a need to not be at work whenever this time is happening.
Yeah,
right. I think that's a very good point around productivity. And if you can allow somebody to not have to take a sick day, and therefore they shouldn't be working, but to say, I'm taking a menstrual leave day, so I will still work, but I'll be at home.
Yes.
As we're still going to have the productivity, aren't we? Sort of coming through, which is what we really want at the end of the day, is to be inclusive, to make women comfortable with something that, as you say, is a biological piece that happens every month. But is just more facilitated in the workplace to make it better, really.
Boy, I mean, this has just really opened up my eyes to a lot of things. But something that just popped into my head as well is, if the levels of this, fluctuates for women, like, shouldn't men also, not that men experience this whole pain, but for example, I'm pretty sure if either of you were going through a really high pain level and it's so debilitating, you would do well with having your partner or your husband around you, to kind of help out with other stuff so that you could just, lay down in the bed and just deal with this, right? So in that case, if we do, have you guys seen it? Should menstrual leave then be genderless, for want of a better word? So in other words, be more inclusive, whereas just like how you have paternal leave, and as Deb said, we're having a conversation around paternal leave where men get some days off. Like, as a man, it should be like, my wife, my missus, is just not up to it today because she's going through this whole pain. I'm gonna take a menstrual leave to go and support her. I mean, what do you guys think of that? Is that too controversial?
We're not there yet. That's what we think. We're not there yet. We're still trying to get menstrual leave for the people who are having the experience. we that's a conversation that we have after the women who actually are feeling the actual direct feeling. Then we talk about including you guys.
No, but I think if you have that conversation right now and just make it one thing, like, why should we then be just chipping away? Just chop down the whole tree one time.
No, I don't disagree with you. I just know, based on how I'm talking about what happens here in Jamaica and just culturally, when we're having this conversation, like I said, it has to make business sense for the business people. So they're not just going to do this because they feel like being nice. They have to do it because it gives them a result that they are happy with. So it has to make business sense. Right now, it will not make business sense for these men to be at home when their partners are having periods. And the truth is, sometimes all we need is just some silence. We need all y'all out of the house. We just need to be able to be in a quiet space. We don't need to hear you we don't need you to do anything. Just leave us alone. Sometimes that's all we need as your support, is to leave us alone. So, I think it's valid though, but I don't think we're there yet.
So Romeo, you don't get your leave.
I mean, Deb, like the UK is far more flexible and open to stuff like this. I mean, do you think that's something that like this could fly, in the UK?
I'm a bit cynical about it, Romeo. I think it's a great idea, but I think that the disruption to work would be an issue. And I think, playing devil's advocate here, I think corporates were worried about people taking advantage of the situation. And I think that would be a real issue. Now, I say if we went the way Spain went and it's a doctor's note, it's slightly different, but I think that would be a big issue for business. So I think yes, Shelly-Ann's right. No, let's get to menstrual, leave first, and then let's worry about about the guys.
just being the typical man, just always want to be in everything, right?
I know, right?
But I mean, sometimes say we have said it varies enormously, and some people suffer with endometriosis, which is actually almost a chronic condition, and it is completely debilitating for that individual. And I've had friends who've had that. And
sorry, Debs, can you repeat that word again?
Endometriosis.
Okay.
Which is really
from menopause, from
menstrual, just very severe. Where I won't go into the technicals of it, but it's where eggs get caught or you get cysts, and it's okay. Oh, Shelly-Ann, please do a much better job than I will. Thank you.
Okay, really quickly, what endometriosis is? The inside of the womb is called the endometrium. Yeah. And with endometriosis, what happens is that the cells that make up this space in here starts to grow external of the womb. Oh. And because it's on the outside of the womb, other things attack it. So it becomes inflamed and it can be very painful. They have found endometrium cells in people's lungs. So it travels outside of the womb and causes a lot of inflammation. Body fluids is hitting it, other different blood and things on the outside of the womb is hitting it, because you see how the womb is set up? It's a whole defense mechanism. It's locked inside. So it's not supposed to be on the outside.
So when you explain about menstruation, is that because of that whole process and it's now kind of impacting the inflammation? That's why it's so painful during the period of menstruation.
Okay, remember when I explained about how the brain sends hormones into the bloodstream? Hormones, it causes the endometrium to inflame as well.
Okay,
right?
Got it.
So the hormones is hitting it, but in the protection of the womb, it doesn't have the same sort of inflammation effect because it has that casing. But outside of it, everything else is coming at it. So endometriosis, and then there are levels, because you have some women who have endometriosis who they experience pain, but they're able to manage it on some level. And for some, it's chronic. It's really bad. They have to do surgeries. They have to make a lot of changes in their lives. It takes over a lot of their even just daily activities. What they eat matters. It affects everything. And there are other reproductive health issues that can cause this kind of disruption. Fibroids is one of them as well.
Candice has very kindly shared a blog on our website on endometriosis in the workplace for women. So please do feel free to have a look at that, and we can pick it up another time. I guess as we're getting towards the end of our session, I'd just like to get perhaps a summary for everyone in terms of what are the next steps? What can we do to kind of help push this agenda forward? And help people in the workplace? What would you suggest?
Well, what I would suggest right away is education, awareness. I think that's where we have to start. I think that a lot of the times, it's complete ignorance. A lot of persons don't have any idea that this is a thing that really does affect us, because we do such a great job of hiding it. We make it look like we are not going through as much challenges as we are. And I really believe that we must have education. And I cannot stress this enough. We cannot do this without the men. The men have to be front and center. They have to be included in the conversations. They have to be the ones to ask the questions. They have to be ready to be supportive, because this is not a woman's problem. This affects all of us. It's reproductive health, and reproduction is a human condition that we need in order for the species to continue. So I'll say start with education and move on from there.
So I would agree with Shelly. I think we would need education, start the conversations, especially at the workplace. I think once that happens, men would be more supportive towards it. And another very important point, Shelly, is men have to be allied to it. Only if they are allied to it, can we carry this movement forward. Then some basic things the organization can do is provide adequate infrastructure, adequate number of washrooms for the females. The washrooms to be maintained in proper conditions. They have to be clean, providing sanitary napkins, tampons for employees, and just, having some first aid available if someone needs a medicine or someone wants to go home. ideally there should not be questions asked. If a woman says that I'm menstruating, I want to take a leave, the supervisor has to be supportive enough to give that leave. So we start there. And then I think there are still a lot of progressive organizations which are doing a better work there. In India, I think there are almost 10 companies which are offering menstrual leaves. Many more are joining in. So everybody wants to be doing the right thing. The only thing is to take the right step forward one at a time.
Yeah. Debs, from a UK perspective, like, what are some of the, do you know of any companies that have, because we don't have menstrual leave here in the UK, like, do you know any companies that have been kind of, progressing this agenda?
I know some that are really addressing menopause at this moment
Right.
in time, but not many on the menstrual leave. And in fact, I was, as part of the research for this podcast, I was looking at that there is you can join an organisation that promotes menstrual benefit in the workplace, if you like, things like having a sanitary products in offices, allowing remote working, etc. So you can sign up to that. But I think it seems to be quite nascent in the UK in terms of its positioning. And I think I agree with my fellow females that it's about education and that allyship and just building up the momentum around this piece to promote it as much as we can.
Yeah, I think, and you're right. I see a lot of agitation now around menopause, and I think the reason for that is because there are a lot of senior women in corporate who are going through this right now, and therefore it's on the agenda. But I think separating menopause from menstruation is an error that we're making in this space, right? It should be, as both Shelly-Ann and Shivani has said, and you, Deb, just it's around equitability for women, and you can't separate. Menstruation is the start, and then you get to menopause. Like, separating them would be defeatist, for want of a better word, and it would not be pushing the equity agenda. It's it's putting both of them together to say menstruation and menopause are important. Women in the workplace, women are going to experience this at different times, but however, you should be able to take leave, whether it's for menstruation or for menopause, period. So, I think that's one of the things that I'm now an ally, and the fact is that because I've learned so much now, and I'm going to continue learning about it, and I think it's going to be so powerful if men, speak up more about, when they're, especially leaders in business, like, can you imagine how powerful it would be for a man to go on stage and just start talking about how this impacts their daughter, their wife, or people in their workplace? Like, other men would just be like, wow, you know what, we need to kind of take this serious.
Well, I'm happy to report that we've been very good at that, because that has been a focus for me. I'm very determined to get men to be a part of this conversation. And what we have done is, in colleges, especially when we do period workshops in colleges, all the male students are supposed to be participating. When we go to schools overall, all the male students are participating, because stereotypically they separate them. We insist that they have to be in the room, and because of that, their fathers get involved. And whenever we have parent-teachers meetings and the fathers are there, we target the fathers. We've had situations where, for the first time, men in their 40s are buying menstrual products. And, we are very happy about that, because that is what we want. We want them to participate. So it can happen, and it helps. It really helps when you have a man as a part of the coalition, because the truth is they are still the decision makers in a lot of powerful spaces. So if they are on board, that's half the battle. So we really have to get them involved, and I love the fact that you say you're on board now, Romeo. So please talk to the other gentlemen when they get a chance, and let's make a thing of it. I'm ready to go.
Thank you, Shelly-Ann. Guys, we're coming to the end of our hour. I can't thank you enough. It's been such an amazing conversation.
It has been, seriously. Oh my God.
So that is all we've got time for today. I'd just like to thank, from the Melting Pot, I'd just like to thank you for tuning in. I'd like to particularly thank our guests, Shivani and Shelly-Ann. I've really appreciated your contribution to this
Yes.
topic. I'm sure we'll be having further conversation about it. Thank you all for joining us today, for your thoughts and contributions. It's been remarkable. The next episode, I think, is It Takes Two to Tango. I think I'm right, Romeo. So fathers receiving paternal leave in the workplace. So that's our next podcast. You'll find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Medium as Lumerous PLC. We also have a white paper launch. Please have a look on our website and a few blogs that I think I mentioned earlier on. So please do have a look at that. If there's anything else you need, please do get in touch with us with regard to this topic. And I'd like to thank our behind the scenes team. So Candice, Ralph and George, thank you so much for your support.
Yes.
Romeo, pleasure as ever to be spending time with you. Thank you all.
Just wanted to add one thing, that these podcasts definitely help in creating awareness. So my request would be to all of you to please go ahead and spread the message.
Thank you, Shivani.
Yes. And please visit my website, embraceherflow.com, to see more about the work that we do here in Jamaica.
Thank you for joining us. You can also reach us and find out more about us via our website, lumerous.com.